third Thursdays of every month at 6 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in. And if you know other people who might be interested in these topics, please direct them to our YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, because you can watch this recording again. This is being recorded. Every week, every town hall, I bring to you an update on what is going on with particularly our COVID-19 pandemic. News that you can use in Oakland, as well as some good news that might not always make the mainstream media. So I'm excited to start our town hall, which will be on environmental justice. Such a great topic. But first, just our general update on what's going on in Oakland, particularly with this pandemic. Messiah, if you could cue my slides. It is very disturbing that we have seen quite the increase in Alameda County and Oakland specifically. Not only, as this graph shows, of hospitalizations, but also hospitalizations in our ICU. That means that people are getting sick in ways that are so serious, we are having to hospitalize them. These are serious health concerns. Clearly, we are not following doctors' orders and doing the protective things that we do to stop the spread of COVID. Next slide. I encourage everyone to subscribe to the People's Health Report from our fabulous Roots Community Health Center. And this is some data that they have seen from their community testing sites. Know that Roots is doing testing in most parts of deep East Oakland. And we know that East Oakland is having 4 times the infection rates of other parts of Alameda County. And what has been interesting is this change in the trends of where people are actually contracting COVID-19. As you can see, we are seeing a decrease in infections generating from households and the workplace, but a really disconcerting increase in people contracting the disease at parties and social gatherings. And so when we talk about repeatedly give the lake a break, we are talking about this disturbing increase in infections coming from social gatherings. Again, we recognize that people are stressed out. This is not the time to give people a ticket just for having a picnic. But what we are doing is cracking down particularly from out-of-town vendors who are advertising on social media and trying to generate crowds so they can make a profit at the expense of our public health. We are working with our local vendors to find ways that they can vend safely, as well as we encourage everyone to find ways to go online, shop online, your favorite local vendors and businesses. We do need to support them to get through this pandemic, but we are not about to let out-of-towners profit off our public health. So please pay attention to these really disturbing trends in where COVID-19 is spreading. And just, I know you're tired of hearing me say it, wear a face covering. That is another thing that the studies are showing, that face coverings significantly decrease the chance of you getting an infection or giving an infection. Next slide. We are starting to wrap up our successful COVID-19 Relief Fund. Huge thanks goes to the Oakland Fund for Public Innovation, which hosted and managed the $5.8 million that generous Oaklanders like you donated right away to bring relief to those most impacted by COVID-19. If you want to read about exactly how those funds were used and some of the stories of people that these funds helped, like Kishna's Child Care Corner, pictured here, a fabulous home-based child care center in deep East Oakland that is taking care of the children of many of our frontline workers. Please read the report about the COVID-19 Relief Fund at oaklandfund.org. It's not too late to make a contribution, but again, huge thanks to the Oakland Fund for Public Innovation. Next slide. Also, in good news, we know that housing security is Oakland's largest challenge, and we received nearly $30 million to build 227 deeply affordable units in East and West Oakland. Huge congratulations to Ibaltsi and Saha, with the two nonprofit affordable housing developers that were awarded these $30 million in funds. I know that that will just be a drop in the bucket towards the need for housing that people can afford here in Oakland. Next slide. Oh, and I should have mentioned, if you are interested in getting one of those affordable units, if you want to find out whether you qualify or you want to apply, you can email housingassistance@oaklandca.gov. Housing assistance at oaklandca.gov. Find out how you can apply to get one of these protected affordable units. Also, last week at the last City Council meeting, the Oakland City Council established the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force. There is such a robust conversation right now about defunding police, reimagining public safety. Oakland is doing it right. We are creating this community body to do the analysis, be informed, and be transparent to really look at what it would look like, what it would take to reduce 50% of the Oakland Police Department's budget. That's around $150 million. If you are interested in participating or just want to learn more about how you can have your voice or opinions heard in the work of this task force, you can email reimaginesafety@oaklandca.gov. Again, reimaginesafety@oaklandca.gov. We need everyone to have their voice heard and to own this moment of transformation in safety for Oaklanders. Next slide. Also, we had some not so good news from the federal government, from the White House. They are just full of bad news. President Trump has actually moved up the deadline to complete your census. You must, please, everyone you know, get them to complete their census by September 30th. We will be lobbying the Congress to extend that deadline, but right now, that is yet another thing that the White House has done to us. We need everyone counted. For each person that gets counted, that means roughly $10,000 over the next 10 years for housing, for food, for basic necessities for our most vulnerable. Make sure everyone is counted. And that includes undocumented residents. The census is safe. It is secure. We have made sure of that. You can trust the census. So please go to 2020census.gov, get counted. It really makes a difference for the next 10 years in the level of federal support the city of Oakland will get. Next slide. Also, next week, we are going back to school. I know my kids are not ready, but back to school we will go. I know that there is a lot of uncertainty about going back to school right now, particularly for us public school parents, but please stay posted at ousd.org. And if you click Family Central, you can learn about where your family can get access to distance learning tools. You can take the tech check, and that's the way of assessing whether or not your family may need extra support with learning devices, internet connectivity, or technical support in your home for your distance learner. Also, OUSD is going to continue its food service, which has been fantastic. So please, we know this is going to be a first day of school like none other we've ever had before, as 100% of Oakland Public School students are going to be distance learning from home. Stay tuned on other resources for families. We are working on that as probably our next town hall topic. but this is where you can stay posted for now. Family Central at OUSD.org. Next slide. All right, we got some questions ahead of time through Thought Exchange, but here's your opportunity, if you didn't get your question in ahead of time, to text us or scan the QR code, click on the link, you can put in your own question, or you can score the questions that other people have asked so that the most popular ones go to the top of the list. I'm going to be answering some questions that I got ahead of time at the end of our formal presentations. And with that, I'm really excited to turn it over to our first guest speaker tonight. Environmental justice, the place where we know that our fight for racial justice, for social justice, for equity, and to make our environment one that is sustainable and healthy for everyone, where it shouldn't be that your zip code determines the quality of air that you breathe, your access to nature or the outdoors. We know that these things are inextricably linked. This year, we just approved, the City Council just approved our ECAP, our Equitable Climate Action Plan. It has very ambitious goals, and that is because it was created by you, by the community. And here to talk about what that plan means and how we are going to achieve it is our sustainability manager for the City of Oakland, Daniel Hamilton. Daniel, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to attend. And thank you to all of you who were able to make time out of your busy schedules to hear this update on the Equitable Climate Action Plan. So if we can cue up the slides, please. Wonderful. So the Equitable Climate Action Plan is the end of a 2-year process where more than 2,100 Oaklanders helped share their voices for what they thought Oakland's climate future should look like. As the mayor said, this is more than about greenhouse gas emissions. This is about clean air. It's about food security. It's about the type of community we want to have and how we can use the lens of climate change to help address some of the historic inequities that are so rampant within our city. We heard about and we learned about so many more of the ways in which disparities in air, in health, in access to environmental resources, and access to nature, how many of these things have affected people's lives. And through about 2 years, we worked with an equity facilitation team to craft a new policy plan to help direct that work. So please move on to the next slide. So as we designed this plan, social, racial, and economic equity were the driver for the creation of the plan. This slide shows you what that looks like. Generally, it falls within 2 categories. On the left side of the screen, you see how do we stop climate change? This is a look at greenhouse gas emissions. How do we lower those emissions? How do we help pull some of that carbon out of the atmosphere and help store it down in the soils in ways that may produce a lot more benefits for our community? Then on the right, we're also looking at how we adapt to climate change. The impacts of climate change are already here. We see them in rising sea levels. We see them in greater heat events within Oakland than we used to have. We see them in things like the public safety power shutoffs where electricity goes out for wildfire protection. So the plan also contains a broad strategy for how we adapt to these changes and the ones we expect to see coming more. This includes our infrastructure. It includes our access to resources, especially during this COVID crisis. We're seeing the need for more neighborhood-based solutions to get out resources, to allow for more and better dissemination of the type of things that people need within their community most. Next slide. So the plan itself is divided into 7 sections, and I'm going to cover those briefly. But I want to show you the things that are not called out as sections because they are, in fact, present in every one of the sections of the plan. These are the topics that are paramount to most Oaklanders. These are the messages we heard over and over that are most critical to the climate future of Oakland. Environmental justice, housing security issues, public health, obviously, is a huge driver for this. Green jobs, food security, all the topics you see here on the screen are reflected in the plan, and we have a comprehensive strategy for showing how climate-related solutions can help improve these conditions. There won't necessarily be a climate reason why action occurs on each of these things, meaning climate won't be the driver of all solutions to things like housing security, civic engagement. These are comprehensive challenges that go far beyond just the climate-related impacts, but we know climate is a part of them. We want to make sure that climate solutions are addressing much broader solutions to help bring about the type of justice that we need to see in these categories. Next slide, please. So the sections of the ECAP, there are 7 that have specific policy items. So we have 40 action items in this plan that all go very, very deep into solutions for the climate crisis. In transportation and land use, this is largely about reducing the number of vehicles on the road, electrifying those vehicles that are there, and creating better and easier access for all Oaklanders in all neighborhoods to take advantage of active mobility, public transit, walking, biking, shared vehicles, all their forms of getting around the city without relying on a single occupant vehicle. In the buildings and energy section, this is largely about eliminating fossil fuel use. We did get a comment about natural gas costs as the city looks to convert natural gas systems over to electricity. It seems timely to report out that in the process of developing this plan, a lot of information came out about the indoor air quality and health impacts of natural gas systems in homes that are somewhat poorly understood, that have grave consequences for those with respiratory illness, asthma, COPD, and other issues there. Also, there's a misconception that natural gas is cheaper than electricity, which in fact it is not. Per unit cost, it is, but the efficiency is so much higher in electric appliances and systems that the net cost to Oaklanders is going to be less as we make this transition, especially in the long term as the state looks to end the natural gas system in California. The last users of that system are going to be paying tremendously high costs to maintain that system. We want to make sure to protect Oaklanders from having to bear those costs. It's part of a broad strategy for helping to increase housing security and reduce pressures for displacement and gentrification. The material consumption and waste section is about eliminating waste. Pretty basic concept here, but we have a lot of single-use plastics. We have a lot of organic food going to landfill that could be going into the mouths of hungry people. 1 in 5 rely on the food banks here in Oakland, so very strong issues there. Next slide, please. Climate adaptation, I mentioned. This is looking at things like resilience hubs, an opportunity for us to build out neighborhood scale resources. And Alex McBride, our Chief Resilience Officer, is going to talk, I think, a little bit about what that might look like in East Oakland particularly, but the plan covers all of the city. Carbon removal section looks at different strategies for increasing tree canopy and tree forestry, particularly in places like the flatlands of Oakland. That includes West Oakland, Fruitvale, and East Oakland, where we know there are low levels of trees compared to the hillside areas. There are broad strategies here to help address and increase that and make sure that the benefits of trees are accessible to those within all parts of Oakland. And then there are sections on port leadership and city leadership, which look to make sure that the city leads by example on retrofitting buildings and on really making a strong commitment to ending reliance on fossil fuels. Next slide, please. And the most important part of this plan, we led with it, and I want to close with it. Equity is truly embedded in this process. I want to thank the Oakland Climate Action Coalition, Environmental Justice Solutions, and Blue Star Integrated Studio, who were the equity facilitation team, helped bring about those 2,100 Oaklanders who participated in this process. The plan itself included an equity screen of all of the action items, and the thing we're proudest of, a racial equity impact assessment and implementation guide. This really is a transformational way of looking at how we can implement the actions in the climate action plan, making sure that they prioritize frontline communities, making sure that they benefit specifically Black and Brown communities that have been most disadvantaged by these type of policies in the past, making sure that the benefits are accruing to those people first and foremost, because they're the ones hit worst and first by the aspects of climate change. So this process has taken more than 2 years to develop. As the mayor mentioned, the council passed this plan on July 28th. It is now in effect. And now we go through the important work of implementing these priority actions, which include creating a new Oakland Climate Action Network to ensure that the community has a strong voice in implementation of each of these actions as they affect their community. So we're very proud of this work. We'll be able to talk about it more in the Q&A, but I thank you for hearing the presentation today.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for all the work that you've done. And I know you just mentioned 2,100 Oaklanders helped contribute to this plan. I do want to also extend a thanks to one of them, which is Councilmember Dan Kolb. Councilmember Kolb sponsored a lot of the legislation that led to the planning process, has really also been there as far as our implementation of our former plan. And I just wanted to personally thank Councilmember Kolb for his leadership in environmental issues just in general. Next up, someone who's going to kind of take, that was very high level, Daniel. That was like, flying over the airplane over the city and looking into, decades away. Let's talk about what this looks like right here, right now, on the ground in beloved East Oakland. And here to talk about that is someone who we are so blessed to have. Very few cities have a chief resilience officer, somebody who is thinking in a very big, long-term, integrated way about how we make our city strong, how we make all parts of our city and all people in our city prepared to bounce back from the predictable crises that we have, including pandemics, as well as just to have a sustainable, connected community. And no one has done that better than Alex McBride. Alex has come to us as our resilience officer, and most recently in the COVID-19 pandemic, she is the person who has really led Oakland in standing up community-based testing sites. And I neglected to shout out that Alex and her partnership with Alameda County and the city has led to Oakland being recognized as one of the only cities in the entire country that actually has better access, shorter wait times in our communities of color, in our communities that are seeing the highest rates of infection and fatality. We are doing better as far as access in those communities than just about any other city in the United States. Alex, we are so grateful for your leadership. And now tell us about what Deep East Oakland is going to do with more than $28 million that was just awarded for a truly community dreamed up version of sustainability.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks for that really kind introduction. I think a lot of the work that we have been able to work on is because of Oaklanders like you. We have such an active and participatory citizenship here that really provides tons of input. If you can pull up the slides, I would love to share a little bit about the TCC grant proposal, but I also entered this work with environmental justice and through environmental justice. I'm so thankful for the mayor to allow this time. I wanted to do a little centering very quickly. Next slide. First naming, I'm here in my apartment in Oakland, Grand Lake area, naming that we're on Ohlone land. When we're talking about the land and the people and justice, we have to acknowledge who, the indigenous populations that were here in this area first. Next slide. And also just environmental justice. It's a term that means a lot to a lot of people. I know there's a lot of stuff on this slide, but I did just want to share a definition that personally resonates with me in terms of what environmental justice means and how we support environmental justice, which means decent paying jobs, quality schools, decent housing. And the mayor talks about silver linings sometimes when we're dealing with this tough time. What are some positive moments? One silver lining we are seeing around the nation is that COVID-19 has helped elevate and help us connect the dots to environmental justice in a way that really hasn't happened in the past. Environmental justice talks about the systemic issues that cause lower health quality in certain communities, inability to get clean, green jobs. And when you're looking at those systematic issues, COVID-19, what we're experiencing now, we're seeing how everything is so related. So I would implore folks who are interested in EJ to read about the research and acknowledging, the work that environmental justice advocates have been doing for so long and so many years, advocating, for example, for cleaner air quality. We're seeing now that, areas with who are most impacted with environmental burdens and lower air quality are also the same areas that are experiencing COVID-19 at higher levels. So it's this kind of systematic thinking and planning that we have to do in order to make the city more resilient. And just wanted to kind of also commend Daniel Hamilton, Shana Hirschfield Gold, the amazing team that put together the ECAP. You know, we're one of the first cities to do a climate action plan like that, centering equity. And we're hoping, again, to continue with that systems level thinking. Next slide. So that $28.2 million that the mayor mentioned, where did that money come from? I wanted to give another quick shout out to our state of California, which through a program called Cap and Trade, which essentially puts a limit on the polluters here in the state, and income that comes from those polluters that aren't able to meet that limit is actually put into a cap and trade fund that the state of California funds tons of programs, and Transformative Climate Communities Program, which is the large grant we got, is one of those programs coming from the cap and trade funds. And while we're talking about environmental justice, also naming, the reason why a program like TCC or Transformative Climate Communities exists is because of the work of environmental justice advocates saying, hey, if we're going to get these funds from polluters, we also need to target these funds to the communities that need it most. So the TCC program, again, is a state program that awards grants to quote unquote disadvantaged communities, but communities that have environmental burdens. And here in Oakland, East Oakland is one of those communities. Next slide. So Better Neighborhoods, Same Neighbors, and East Oakland Initiative. This is the proposal. This is the $28.2 million proposal that is a reflection of years and years of work. I have sort of taken the helm of helping this on the city side for the almost 2 years. But the East Oakland advocates that have been planning and leading the process for envisioning what a new East Oakland would be, they have been the heart and soul to why this project did so well. We actually were the highest rated. This is a competitive grant and lots of cities applied. The city of Oakland was the highest rated or graded proposal. And just quickly about the vision. So the vision of this proposal is to imagine East Oakland with healthy surroundings, safe and accessible transportation, thriving arts and culture. And what that meant after a 2-year process of community engagement across 6 neighborhoods in East Oakland, it led to the prioritization of 5 projects in the city that have been led by, as you see, these organizations here at the bottom of the page. And these 5 projects, if you go to the next slide, are centered in a 5 square mile area in Deep East Oakland. This map actually was created by one of our East Oakland partners, a small business in East Oakland, Olive Street Agency. And as you can see on this map, within this 5 square mile area, we're really trying to integrate tons of projects. We have a bike share, and we're and ensuring that 500 youth are able to enroll in the Scraper Bike Share program. We have affordable housing. The mayor mentioned at the top of this housing and how critical that is to our work. We have a new trail that will be created in Deep East, in the Sabrane Park neighborhood, that essentially opens up and increases access to the Martin Luther King shoreline. I get really excited about this and can talk forever, but I want to make sure we have time for questions. So I'm going to go to the next slide and really talk about what impact, what does that mean? And you may have missed that $28.2 million is for a 5-year time frame. So between now-ish or start, in the next 5 years, as soon as this project officially begins, we're expecting 55 units of affordable housing, a new health clinic administered by La Clinica, which is one of the leading providers in East Oakland. They actually are doing a lot of testing right now. Again, to break down what 20 to 50% AMI means, and AMI means area median income. These are values assessed every year. So by estimate, a 20 to 50 AMI 1-bedroom would cost between $489 to $1,100 per month for a 1-bedroom. So these are, again, income limited, deeply affordable housing units that we hope to bring in, that we need to bring into the Oakland community. Another impact that we're excited to bring in is with Planting Justice, one of the largest organic nurseries in the nation, actually, once they acquire this 2-acre property in Sabrane Park. And it's going to help in that area to create a local food hub. I mentioned the Greenway, the San Leandro Creek Greenway, as well as a bike shed. If you look at the right-hand corner at the bottom, this is a co-design bike shed with the library and Scraper Bike team that students will be able to come and essentially rent their bikes. We are also, Daniel mentioned the inequities in urban canopy and trees. I know Ernesto submitted a question in advance of this asking about how we're addressing tree planting in East Oakland and ensuring that we have more trees in place. This grant is going to help create 2,000 trees or plant 2,000 trees. But what's even more exciting, I think, and reflective of what environmental justice is that we're not just bringing these, delivering these things to the community. This is community-led work. We are creating jobs. The entities that are implementing this work are East Oakland organizations like Black Cultural Zone and the Oakland Parks and Rec Foundation. We're doing workforce training. And if you're wonky like me and kind of want to understand the kind of carbon impact to this work, once all this work is done, including the tree planting, it'll be equivalent to taking almost 2,000 cars off the road for 1 year, based on the types of improvements and investments we're doing in East Oakland. Next slide. Again, I would be remiss if I were not naming the many partners that not only are implementing this work, but before this process or before this proposal was even created, the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative, or EONI, was another year-long process that brought these organizations together to come up with that vision that I shared at the beginning of this presentation. I ask if you have some time to check out the East Oakland Neighborhood Initiative page at the City of Oakland site, where you can see the plan. And, even though 28.2 million sounds like a lot, it's, what we hope to be the beginning of more investments that help to implement the plan that these EONI partners created. Next slide. Again, just wanted to make sure we saw these smiling faces and the many people, city staff, community members that helped to make this proposal possible. Next slide. And finally, again, what's exciting, I always say that equity is not a destination, it's a process. The same amount of time we spent in ensuring we had a proposal that was reflective of the community, we're going to continue that engagement throughout our implementation to lift up community voices. The TCC work will have a collaborative stakeholder committee, a structure that will essentially involve community members, the project leads, where we're regularly meeting, talking, ensuring that as we're implementing, we're taking in feedback. Again, we've just got word of the grant. We're getting ready to start. But as we do rev up, we hope to share more information about how to be more closely involved. If you do have questions, though, you can contact us at tcc@oaklandca.gov or visit us on our TCC grant page that we'll continue to update. So again, thank you so much for the time, and thank you, Mayor, for allowing this space.
Great, thank you. I think we're all excited to see those 2,000 new trees in East Oakland, like the scraper bikes everywhere. If you don't know what a scraper bike looks like, you have missed out. It's this explosion of art and bike, and it's only in Oakland, and we are so proud of that energy and creativity. The 2-acre farm in Sabrane Park, that's where we held our press conference. It's like a lot of blackberry bushes right now. So, this is going to be so exciting, and it really lifts up today, right now, what environmental justice looks like and feels like. But let's talk about the future, because our youth are our future. And so we know that what sustainability, what justice, what environmental justice looks like is really going to be led by our youth. And so here to talk about how our youth are engaged and how other people can get engaged according to our young people, I'm really excited to introduce our final two speakers. First, we're going to hear from Brazil Clark. She is the Public Engagement Manager for our Public Works Department and specifically for the Oaktown Proud campaign, which you will hear more about. Fun fact, Brazil loves running in the trails in Oakland, up in the hills and through our beautiful park system. And also, we're going to hear from the fabulous Leo Theus. Leo is a supervisor of Team Oakland at YEP, which stands for Youth Employment Partnership, one of our most incredible and successful youth job training programs here in Oakland. And fun fact about Leo, he is an artist. He loves to draw and do graphic arts. So Brazil and Leo, please tell us how we can get engaged and talk to us about the youth vision for environmental justice in Oakland.
Thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate that. This is Leo. We'll be talking about Team Oakland and Oaktown Proud. Slide. Slide. Slide again. Sorry. So Team Oakland is a financial literacy and job readiness program with opportunities for youth in color and low-income neighborhoods. Slide. Team Oakland focuses on environmental literacy and stewardship. Slide. With advocacy and community training and public outreach for city initiatives. Slide. And tangible, long-lasting community projects. Slide. YEP has been a historical partner with the city of Oakland for many, many years, since 1993. Slide. During that time, we have employed over 2,700 youth. Slide. Provide them with job training and cognitive soft development skills within cleaning up park projects and outreach. Slide. A little overview from our last year, from 2019, we completed over 11,909 hours of work, which consists of cleaning up, park stewardship, and job readiness training. Slide. During that time, we also collected almost 4,000 bags, which was actually being 3,905 bags. Slide. Also last year, one of our major partnerships was with Oakland Fire Department doing fire fuel management, which was removing green waste and any other type of debris from the hills and other parks and areas to prevent fires that were ravaging us last year. Slide. And also we do a lot of service learning with other partners such as Friends of Salsa Creek and at the Lake Merritt Rotary Nature Center, where the students get to learn and work in the community about the different nature conservations like planting and plant restoration, and also about graffiti removal and other things to make sure the city stays clean and safe. Slide. I also give gratitude to our partners, the Oakland Fire Department, Parks and Recreation, Oakland Unified School District, Oakland School of the Arts, and Friends of Salsa Creek and Planning Justice for partnering with us throughout the years. Slide.
And I'll be speaking about our Oaktown Proud Student Ambassadors, which is a subset of Team Oakland. Launched in May 2019 with 24 emerging seniors and Oakland High students from Oakland High and Skyline High School. Slide. Participants trained in illegal dumping, public speaking, behavior change, and digital media at Oakland School of the Arts. Slide. This is a year-round program that's partnered with OUSD during their Exploring College and Career Options. During summer, they participate in Team Oakland at YEP, and during the fall and spring semesters, they are managed by myself, where they engage in peer and community outreach at First Friday, as you see in the photo, at community meetings, and are paid with semester stipends. They are also given a letter of recommendation by the mayor herself. Slide. Leo will continue to talk about the 2019 participant demographics of last year at Team Oakland.
Thank you, Brazil. Slide again. Last year in 2019, we employed 136 youth. Slide. Of those youth, it was mostly youth of color. There we go. Yeah, of those youth were mostly youth of color, with 65% being African American. Slide. Most from the flatlands and lower income neighborhoods. As you can see in the maps, the clear zones and the cleanup zones and mostly highlighted areas the cleanup zones are mostly in the high use and dense areas of Oakland. Slide. Also, we have equal parts of males and females that join the program. And also this is an internship, so where they are paid hourly for all their wages and their training that they do in the program. Slide.
Thank you, Theo, for giving us a summary of our 2019 program. In June 2020, we extended our contract with Team Oakland and YEP to June 2023, with $375,000 per year being allocated to the program. Slide. The 2020 vision was to integrate the Student Ambassador program with the standard Team Oakland program. Slide. This was aimed to increase the quality of the programmatic structure with a higher proportion and level of training, and connect all of the components together so that students leave with a clear idea of environmental justice, environmental stewardship, and their impacts on their local environment. Slide. The idea was to resize the team members to about 80 team members instead of 100, and reduce the size to 8 team leaders, with 25 team members to be year-round student ambassadors. Slide. We also aim to increase our community outreach by doing neighborhood canvassing and outreach accompanied by their litter removal, not just picking up litter. We also wanted to increase participation in OPW's programs and services, including the bulky pickup service and our Adopt a Spot program that leads community cleanups, as well as gives tools and trainings to community members to adopt their local park, creeks, and streets so that they can become environmental stewards of their own neighborhood. Slide. We aim to do this with real-time documentation and an increased Oaktown Proud social media. So I hope you've been seeing us at Oakland on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Slide. Now I'll pass it back to Leo to talk about the sample weekly schedule and what the weekly schedule looks like for all Team Oakland members.
Thank you, Brazil. And as you can see on the slide, that Monday was focused to be our more outreach day and outreach and cleanup, where they would meet with, be on the routes with the different businesses and outreaching to them about the different, what Team Oakland does in their services. On Tuesdays are our special project days, where they would meet with our partners like the Oakland Fire Department and Friends of Salsa Creek, and do special projects either at parks or in the hills to do like plant restoration and creek cleanup and other urban agricultural projects. On Wednesdays was originally another outreach day, but we changed that to be a field trip day for all the students to give them more of an opportunity and see more opportunities that Oakland has to offer. Thursday was also converted into another special project as well as a cleanup day for the students, with Friday also becoming a outreach and cleanup day to give the students another chance to meet and talk with the businesses about the work that they're doing. Slide. Some more highlights from this year, from 2020. The proposed schedule was modified due to COVID-19, but we still had a pretty successful summer. Instead of 80 youth, we employed 93 team members, with 12 team leaders leading the members. The students worked over 1,200 hours and earned almost $200,000, and have so far collected 25,000 bags. Slide. And as you can see in the photos and the slide, that these are the uniforms that the students are wearing. Due to COVID-19, all the students now wear new highlighter green masks that highlight the Oaktown Proud logo, and they have highlighter green shirts that also highlight the YEP logo on the front and the Oaktown Proud logo on the back. And all the team leaders, which are in the orange shirts, have now been trained with COVID-19 procedures to make sure that all the students are safe, social distancing, and also be able to spread that knowledge to the greater community as well when they're doing their outreach. So not just the team members are involved, but also the greater community can understand more about the program as well. Slide.
So as you can see, outreach and education is integral to our programs and to the success of our program. With that, we launched the Oaktown Proud program. Proud stands for Prevent and Report Our Unlawful Dumping, which was launched in January of this year. It's a campaign by and for Oaklanders to reduce illegal dumping and to improve our neighborhoods. This is done with the 3E strategy: education, as we talked about with our Team Oakland and student ambassador members, eradication, and enforcement. Slide. Our student ambassadors and Team Oakland members empower Oaklanders to make a difference and become advocates in their own homes and communities. They also help raise awareness of important resources and services to help Oaklanders dispose of unwanted materials affordably. Currently, our student ambassadors include participants from Skyline High's Green Academy and Oakland High's Environmental Science Academy and Public Health Academy. Slide. The second E in our 3E strategy is eradication. The Oaktown Proud program aims to be a program that involves both a community involvement and government involvement. On the government side, we've expanded our garbage blitz crews, which were funded during a pilot last year and will be funded throughout the duration of the budget year 2020 through 2021. They proactively pick up dumping in illegal hotspots. Also, part of the eradication effort is the Adopt a Spot program, as previously mentioned. All those who live in Oakland can apply to Adopt a Spot at oaklandadoptaspot.org by clicking or selecting a site in your area and be given the tools and training on how to maintain that area. We also encourage all Oaklanders and those who come to live in Oakland, work in Oakland, play in Oakland to join us in community cleanups. Our next community cleanup is Creek to Bay Day, which with COVID-19 and the shelter in place will be Creek to Bay Month. You can find out more information at oaklandcreektobay.org. Slide. The last E in our 3E strategy is our enforcement program. The Environmental Enforcement Officers Unit, a newly formed team of civilian investigators, inspect heavy dumping sites, contact suspected dumpers, encourage them to abate blight using available services, and when necessary, refer cases for legal action. Yes, you can be cited for illegal dumping. You can also join in by spotting this behavior yourself. As I stated earlier, Oaktown Proud is a partnership between the community and the government. Please call Oak 311, contact 311 if you see dumping in your area. And for more information on all of these services, Oaktown Proud Student Ambassadors, Creek to Bay Day, and Team Oakland, you can always visit oaktownproud.com for more information. Slide. Thank you for having us, Mayor, and your Environmental Justice Town Hall. Special thank you to Mike Perlmutter, Oakland Public Works Environmental Stewardship Team Supervisor, who manages OPW and the YEP contract. And thank you to YEP. Back to you, Mayor.
Great. Thank you so much. And we are so excited about the youth leading the way to an environmentally just and clean Oakland. And I do want to give special recognition to the community, particularly those who have been organized by formerly known as OCO, Oakland Community Organizations, now known as Faith in Action. Really, the residents of East Oakland in particular really kind of rose up and said the city has got to do better. And so I just want to recognize their advocacy. A lot of the expansion of our work and attention on illegal dumping really came out as a result of that community voice, community demand. So speaking of community, this is your chance to send us more of your questions. If you could put up the thought exchange slide. Thought exchange is our cool way of having you submit your questions. Or if you don't have a question, you can see what other people have submitted and you can give it a ranking or a score so that the most popular questions go to the top. If you don't have visibility, if you're listening to this on a phone line, you can text 893-462-559. Text that number to 72855. Again, text 893-462-559 to, in other words, text that number to, not the number two, 72855, and that will connect you to the Thought Exchange site where you can see other people's questions or submit your own. Now, while you, our listeners, are sending us your questions that you've been thinking about while listening to all these great people that are working on environmental justice in Oakland, I'm going to answer a few of our questions that we got ahead of time. Here's one that we got. This was the highest rated question that I got for me ahead of time. How much longer must the East, West, and downtown Oakland residents face zip code discrimination and be forced to live next to encampments with trash and human waste sitting in gutters outside of our homes? On 29th Street in 94609, it has been a constant struggle to get the city to enforce its laws. That was our highest rated question ahead of time. I will let people know that due to COVID-19, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, has recommended to cities that we not move encampments, that we do not resolve encampments during this pandemic for reasons that it could potentially spread more the COVID-19 virus. And so at the start of this pandemic, the city council passed a new policy that prevents the moving or dismantling of encampments, even when the campers are offered shelter. It is surprising to me, and I think Oaklanders should know, that every night Oakland has empty beds in its shelters. Not all shelter beds are currently filled, but the city council has decided to follow this CDC guidance and not enforce laws at this time. So that is a community conversation that I know is ongoing. Council member Lauren Taylor is the chair of the Life Enrichment Committee. I know he is going to be having a special meeting, I believe, at the end of September to really ask how we can maintain healthy streets and neighborhoods, but also be compassionate in taking care of our unsheltered neighbors. So stay tuned for that. A similar question was asked about what will the city be doing and what improvements will be made to ensure our most vulnerable neighbors have access to safe living conditions. For example, shelter. Our community needs to be unified to shrink the divide between our wealthiest and poorer neighborhoods. All Oaklanders deserve safe water, home, and air. I think that everyone on this program tonight could not agree with you more. When we talk about equity, we talk about the policies, the practices, the institutions that continue to perpetuate unjust disparities based on zip code, based on income, and based on race. And Oakland, for all our beautiful progressive values, certainly has those disparities very dramatically. One of the things that I am really excited about, I'll say two things that I think we're doing to address disparities, in addition to what I mentioned about how we've approached testing access in Oakland, which has been recognized as literally the national leader in COVID testing. But another thing I'm really excited about is guaranteed income. So stay tuned. I am working very hard to get funding to pilot a guaranteed income pilot in Oakland. I believe that instead of telling people what they need, by trusting them with sufficient income to meet their basic needs, as well as to even begin to build wealth, that is going to be the most effective and efficient and respectful way to address these disparities. And then I also want to highlight, and I'll invite Alex or Daniel to comment on this, the community-based plans. We know that West Oakland just finished an amazing community-led air quality plan. Next, I believe, is East Oakland. Do either one of you want to give some updates or highlights of what a community-led air quality plan looks like and how that is the best way to address some of these historic disparities?
And okay, I'll go. We both are working very closely on it, so we're looking at each other. Yeah, this is when you take planning led by community, you see those silos burst down. So it is an air action plan, but it's an air action plan that calls for green jobs. It's an air action plan that calls for thinking about what happens in times of disaster and creating resilient hubs, which are areas that people can go to for clean air. The WOCAP, we call it the West Oakland Climate Action Plan, also does a lot of work and coordination with the Port of Oakland. And I do want to have Daniel talk about, because the port is such a large part of West Oakland and solving for environmental, the ECAP did some really great work in getting the port involved. So plugging your work, Daniel, if you want to talk about that.
Thanks, Alex. Yes, the WOCAP, the West Oakland Community Action Plan, is an air quality plan in nature, but it's really a foundationally different approach to planning. And this is something that a lot of the folks like the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project have been pushing for a really long time and helping to bring this to reality. And WOCAP is an example of where they were able to succeed in doing this. We love seeing it moving forward, where the community really has an equal footing at the table with the government partners. This was the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, city staff, port staff. It really was a way of looking at things differently, but also of giving the community an elevated and equal voice within the process. It's something we strove to do in the Climate Action Plan as well. It's something that you're going to see. And Alex didn't get a chance to talk a lot about the background planning work that went into that $28 million grant. But it was called the East Oakland Neighborhoods Initiative, and it involved a lot of those same community-driven conversations where we started with trying to make sure the city could provide resources and provide support to lift up community voices. And in that way, we're ending up with results, processes, plans, physical improvements to our community that much more reflect what needs to happen, because we know the knowledge for what that is lies within the communities. And we're trying to get better as an organization at being responsive to that and helping to bring those things to reality. So I think these are a couple of the processes that have helped to do it. And for any who want to see how that's worked within the climate plan, I do urge you to look at the preliminary equity assessment that we did for these. We highlighted specifically what those disparities looked like for different air issues, water issues, all the things related to climate, neighborhood by neighborhood, race, gender specific, so we could see really the data that was driving what kind of solutions needed to happen.
Great. And if you're a parent, you want to get your young person involved in environmental justice, let's do one more time up on the chat. Leo, you can work with the fabulous Leo or Brazil through YEP any time of the year. And then I believe that Oaktown Proud right now is getting its ambassadors from my alma mater, Skyline High School, go Skyline, and Oakland High. So again, if you want to advocate for expanding, please, this is your chance to have your voice heard. I will read a couple other questions that I got. One is, my principal concern is how is Oakland, along with other San Francisco Bay Area cities, handling the extreme amount of homelessness? Again, lots of questions tonight about homelessness. Without decent, not one size fits all housing, people cannot be productive, healthy citizens, which definitely infects the environment. And I agree with you. And I want to lift up that Oakland has had some success. In 2 years, we doubled our shelter capacity, but we did it in a pretty non-traditional way by creating safe car parks for RVs. About 45% of unsheltered people in Oakland are living in their cars or in recreational vehicles, as well as our innovative cabin communities. There are these little little tiny cabins that are in communities with shared food and showers and bathrooms. And we have found people are far more willing to move into places that provide them shelter, food, and privacy, where they can go to bed at night behind a locked door with their partner, their pets, and their possessions, than the traditional congregate shelter. And it also helped us when COVID hit that we had these naturally distanced shelter options for people. I believe people are sick and tired of paying the ridiculous rents here in the Bay Area. And so I think we're going to see more innovative housing types. Aside from things like these safe RV parks, we're going to see more prefab modular housing. We're working with our partners at the state to look at converting motels and even an old dorm room into super affordable housing that also has a communal aspect. So I believe that that's where we need to go. The cost of housing is becoming unsustainable here in the Bay Area. And so stay tuned as we innovate both with our zoning codes, and I want to lift up Oakland for making building an ADU or a granny unit, a little accessory dwelling unit in the back of your house, a lot easier. These are simple ways that we can add density, get people into neighborhoods of opportunity in a way that is quick and can be done quickly throughout the Bay Area. I also want to lift up preventing homelessness. One of the successful programs has been Section 8, where people get the difference between the rent they can afford and the rent that is being charged. I believe we need to expand that more at the local and even statewide level. That's consistent with our guaranteed income experiment, but also programs like Keep Oakland Housed has provided people with that one-time cash assistance that they need to stay in the housing that they have. And that's one of our frustrations. We have done a good job of moving people from homeless to housed, but for every person we get into permanent housing, 2 to 3 new people are becoming homeless. And that is a tragedy that none of us should tolerate. So please stay tuned. I think Oakland is doing some innovative work in both of these areas. This is my last question. It looks like we're about ready to put up your question. So this is my last one I'm going to respond to. Social distancing while environmentally engaged, online learning and social media have proven effective tools for distancing during this pandemic. In what ways is the mayor committed to creating spaces and support for Oaklanders to gather and interact as a community online? And I'll add to that a question I got also from Ernesto about how can people hold the mayor, me, accountable for environmental justice progress? And I will answer those together. One, the ECAP is a measurable way of holding all your city leaders accountable for very measurable goals. I also started a couple years ago, before we all knew what Zoom was, I do a quarterly Zoom with 53 environmental justice groups in Oakland are participated to just talk with me quarterly on an ongoing basis. If you are interested in being part of those environmental justice Zooms that are quarterly with me personally, please email my office of the mayor at oaklandca.gov. And I would welcome other ideas about how we as the city, how I as the mayor can create more opportunities for people to create community, get engaged, particularly through these tools. And the last thing I'll say before we bring up thought exchange, it is very important that as we turn to technology as our way to socially interact, we do not leave people out. So shout out to the Oakland Undivided campaign. Right now, we have 25,000 laptops on their way to Oakland to make sure that every household with an Oakland Public School student has the tools for distance learning at home. So just huge love and appreciation to all the generous donors, including Jack Dorsey, who made that possible. Oakland undivided. Lots more work to do to close that digital divide, but I think we've seen an urgency for that now more than ever. So with that, please, team, throw up our questions that we got. Right, and I'm going to ask any of you to just choose a question that you find interesting or invokes some interesting information that you'd like to share with our public. Who wants to take the first one?
Well, I know this isn't related to environmental justice, but in my formal life in COVID-19 testing, I see the question, will there be more announcements on resources for residents to know when, where, how to get tested? The county, Alameda County, has been an excellent partner so far in ensuring we stand up new testing site. We still, on our oaklandca.gov/testing, essentially link to Alameda County that now has a growing list of sites that are being brought online. And I see your sub question, small clinics are offering unspecified tests. Yeah, so again, we are all catching up in this pandemic. Our first goal was making sure we were doing enough tests per day, which we actually are. In the county, we were supposed to be doing 3,100 tests per day in order to meet the goal that's been recommended by the state. We've done that. Now we want to make sure we get more online and get our results quicker. So we're seeing our processes improve, and I do suggest to keep your eye on oaklandca.gov/testing, or to go directly to the county site to get information on where to get tested. I want to preview a few other there have been lots of new things that we've been talking about, like doing pop-up testing for 1 or 2 days in certain areas. So you're going to be hearing more about that hopefully very soon. Our team is still working very hard on that, and we are really trying to get testing to be as accessible as possible.
That's right. Again, you do not need insurance. You do not need to be a documented resident to use our community testing sites. Most of them, you do need an appointment. If you don't have access to the internet, call 211 anywhere in Alameda County, and they will help you get an appointment. Some are drive up, and we have 2, one at Native American Health Center and one at Roots Community Health Center at 96th, I think, in International, that are walk up. You don't need a car. There's a question about the Reimagining Public Safety virtual town hall being held by Councilmember Dan Kolb on July 23rd. How is that different than the task force? Well, the task force only has so many seats on it. And so every council member I know really wants to hear directly from his or her constituents how you feel about this issue of reimagining public safety, defunding the police, lots of different opinions about this. So I want to commend Councilmember Kolb from having a town hall on it, so he can so you can find out how you might get involved with the task force, what the work is they're going to be doing, and what kind of resources they're going to have supporting them, as well as just sharing your opinions. Please get involved. Again, I see these are not necessarily about environmental justice, but that's okay. What are you doing about mask education and enforcement? I've noticed in the lake area, the lake is the bane of my existence, people. Low mask wearing compliance. And that you've been harassed and threatened when asked people to wear one. I was out with my teenagers and I asked someone to wear a mask and they were totally embarrassed. So I know we don't want to have any Becky barbecue situations. Be kind to people and just tell them that you love them, and that's why you hope that they consider wearing a mask so they stay healthy. We do have ambassadors out every weekend in the park, handing out free masks, we now have postcards giving people advice. We also have secured a sound truck with a video panel that is driving around some of the most impacted areas. Alex, I know you've been involved with the community outreach task force of our COVID-19 racial disparities task force. What are some other things that we're doing about mask education and enforcement? And, like young people, please jump in. Like, You should talk about how we're seeing a lot of infection in younger people right now. And so please tell us what you think we should be doing to reach people and change that behavior. Alex.
Yeah, I think that's what we've been learning. I know, folks want to hear from the mayor, but some folks want to hear from their friend or from their trusted community member or neighbor. And it's why we have prioritized essentially ensuring community groups have information, have masks that can also do that distribution. So as the mayor said, our city staff are obviously working to do that work, but even the city council approved large, pretty substantial amounts of money from our Federal CARES Act to groups like Oakland Frontline Healers that I know are a collaborative of multiple organizations in East Oakland that are doing education and outreach in innovative ways, whether that's social media or getting youth involved. It's really trying to make sure we add the capacity to these groups already on the ground, while also doing everything we can to give people the supplies and try to meet people where they are.
I want Brazil and Leo to answer the next question, which is, can environmental justice be achieved with so many homeless and so much garbage on our streets? I know you all are fighting every day this illegal dumping issue, and it is an equity issue. And there is also a tie-in with homeless encampments. So Leo or Brazil, do you want to chime in on that? Oh.
Hi, Mary. Could you
good.
repeat the last part of the question again? Sorry.
How can environmental justice be achieved with so many homeless and so much garbage on our streets?
I definitely believe what we've been doing with Team Oakland and at YP is making sure that we are being the authors of the conversation and making sure, like the students, they're the ones that are, while they're out there on the street, talking to a lot of the business people and a lot of the general community about wearing a mask and the importance of it. All the students, they take a COVID-19 class and about making sure that they understand the safety as well. So they make sure when they are in the street and around the low-income neighborhoods and the general population that doesn't get that information, they make sure to explain that to them. And so wherever there's this gap in communication, that we make sure to have Team Oakland be able to be a part of that, and the students be a part of leading that conversation to help bridge that gap. And so they make sure they take the information home back to their parents, back to their cousins and their relatives that may not know this information.
Leo, you said that really well. Thank you. The city cannot do it alone. When the people are taking care and agency over their own communities, that is what is going to really give us true environmental justice. There's a question about whether I support the A's efforts to hold Schnitzer Steel accountable for polluting West Oakland's water and air. Absolutely. Obviously, Schnitzer has offered valuable jobs, but I have been very clear that no job is ever worth polluting our environment or affecting the health of our workers and our residents. Daniel, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, we received a question ahead of time also about the toxics in the soil in West Oakland. And this Schnitzer being right there, it's part of a challenge it's a multi-generational challenge that we've had with toxics in the soil, in the water, and in the air, affecting quality of life and the longevity for West Oaklanders. It's a tremendously complex and difficult challenge, and it's one that we're just starting to be able to really chip away at. We are trying to work with both the air district and the water district to find what options we have available to get this done. We've also been working on getting funding sources potentially for some solutions to this. It's unfortunately been a slow process to start, but it's one that's finally getting the attention it deserves after the tragedies at McClymonds High School with the testing for TCE in the soil on that school site. So within there, that challenge has been heard and it's deeply understood, and there's a variety of staff working on this. Unfortunately, it's just such a systemic challenge with so many private properties and so many different agencies. It's going to take a while on this, but it's definitely it's on the city's radar, and there are a lot of staff focused on finding solutions.
Yeah, and I want to encourage the public. I think government sometimes really is user unfriendly. I don't think people care whether the poison is in the air or the soil. They care that it's impacting their families and their health. And so we have to have more integrated and holistic ways to work with community to deliver a completely healthy environment for you. And so I just think navigating the alphabet soup of different agencies that do this work should be made a lot easier and more accessible. And I think the community-led plans is going to really help do that. A couple more questions about COVID. Again, that's what this is for. You should know that contract tracing efforts around COVID-19 are in fact happening, but they are being done by Alameda County. The county controls public health, and so they have the responsibility and the resources for doing the contact tracing. I know they are still hiring more contact tracers. They're also contracting with community-based organizations to expand outreach and to make sure that contact tracing is done in a culturally intelligent and sensitive way, responsive way. Make sure we have lots of the languages that different Oaklanders speak, etc. And so, again, for more information, and maybe you guys can put up in the chat the Alameda County Public Health website, where you can learn more about contract tracing efforts. But those statistics that I showed early on about where people are actually contracting COVID, how we're seeing this huge increase in parties and gatherings, that came from contact tracing data. So it is getting done. Swimming pools are not yet open. I don't know if other counties have opened them, but I can tell you Alameda County has been one of the most conservative in the whole state of California. That is why, while our infection rate is certainly unacceptable, it is below the average in California. And I want to continue to support our health official in really being cautious. We have got to flatten that curve and keep people from getting sick. No one has been arrested for vandalizing my home. I do want to thank all the neighbors and our family and friends that came. I did not lift a finger. Everyone came and cleaned it up, and the kids across the street repainted our garage door. And I don't think anyone believes that is advancing any movements. And I'm just sorry that people experienced that along with our family. I think I answered this one. All right. Here's a question for Leo in Brazil. Are you guys ready? Leo in Brazil.
Yes.
What is considered low income for youth participating in Team Oakland or in the Student Ambassadors Program? So how can people get their young people involved if they're interested?
There are only two qualifications to apply for a position within Team Oakland. You must be an Oakland resident, and meaning you must live in Oakland, and you must be an Oakland youth age 15 to 24. Low income is defined by the zip codes that the team members say that their home is in, and the low income determination comes from the state and county relative in comparison to other counties and zip codes throughout California. Also, when we survey the students at the end of the program, we ask them what do they consider themselves. And last year in 2019, I believe 63% of participants identified themselves as low income. But that is not a question that we ask when applying. And you don't need to be a certain income level to apply. You just must live in Oakland.
All right. Well, that's good. How they are supporting parks? And I'm going to ask other people to chime in about how you think we should better support our parks. First of all, I want to thank the voters of Oakland for passing Measure D. We are going to have new resources to do much better park maintenance thanks to your generosity last March at the ballot box. So very exciting. Again, I think there is going to be a policy conversation about whether or not we should allow homeless encampments to be in public parks. So again, if that is an issue that interests you, I encourage you to contact Councilmember Lauren Taylor, who chairs the committee that is going to be discussing that very policy issue. And then as far as the lack of public works services like trash pickup, again, despite the COVID-19 impacts to our city's budget, we had to cut $122 million out of our budget just last month. We did continue to add another illegal dumping pickup crew. So we are in the process of hiring those new workers. Even despite our budget woes, we knew that that was the highest priority, particularly for our Deep East Oakland residents. And that was our approach as we did our budget process this year, was to really think about neighborhoods like East Oakland that have been disproportionately underinvested in the past. And we recognize that it is now our job to make up for that and to prioritize services that are important to particularly our East Oaklanders. Alex, I know you've got a big crush on East Oakland. I know you're not supposed to have favorites, but you have loved working with this TCC grant. You and Daniel Bazil, how else do you think we should be supporting our parks, particularly as they experience high use during this pandemic?
Yeah, I do think we do need to consider obviously thinking about ways to ensure folks feel safe in parks. One of the things we are excited about in the TCC program is trying to figure out how to get more ambassadors there in the community to ensure, folks know that the spaces are available and safe. And I really respect, the Public Works, the department of doing Adopt a Spot and having essentially communities really feel the confidence and have the support to support their neighborhood parks. And we're hoping, I'm sure Brazil and Leo may have thoughts on that, but I am personally a fan of programs that really try to get the community to embrace their neighborhood parks and areas.
Yeah, Leo Bazil, Brazil, this is your chance to plug Adopt a Spot again. How does Adopt a Spot help?
I was just waiting for this. Adopt a Spot, you can adopt a spot, your local block, a creek, a park, as we're talking about, or any, even a neighborhood median. Oakland Public Works will give you the tools, meaning we'll give you the litter pickup sticks, the bags, plastic bags for litter, paper bags for green waste, and teach you how to maintain that area. Oaktown Proud also aims to educate the community about the effects of litter and waste and the impacts that litter and waste have on our waste stream. Oakland Public Works has also increased our efforts in going and changing out the trash cans that are in parks, picking up needles that may be in parks, hazardous waste, or any other waste. But it also falls on the community, and that's why I continue to push that Oaktown Proud is an effort between both the community and government. So when you see someone doing something that you would not like in your park, to say something or call Oak 311 to report that.
I also encourage people to check out the Oakland Parks and Rec Foundation. They do a Love Your Park survey every year. They are a private foundation that just exists to support our parks. They're fabulous. And then if you don't have time to adopt a spot, which, means like regular caretaking, we do have special events every year. Last year we had Battle for the Bay, where London Breed and I had a little friendly competition about who could turn out more volunteers on Creek to Bay Day. That's a day where we have projects all over our parks, as well as Earth Day. So just please, I know there's oaklandearthday.org is a place to stay tuned for those projects. Lots of great ways, and it is just the most satisfying experience in the world to also take care of your own local park.
Yes, we have Creek to Bay Day coming up in September, which is Creek to Bay month. So September 1st launches Creek to Bay month, and you can visit oaktownproud.com for more information, or oaklandcreektobay.org. Once again, that's oaklandcreektobay.org.
We've got a question about the first day of school. Believe you me, I have no power over that at all. I am a parent like everyone else that is subject to that. It is negotiated, and I encourage you to talk to your elected school board members. The Oakland Public School is a separate governmental entity with a separate elected board that sets the first day of school. The next question, I will say, I can't speak for the whole city, but as the mayor of Oakland, I am ashamed that we have high cancer risk and asthma emergency department visits, and not just high rates, but huge racial disparities. Oakland last year, and this was through funding from the Rockefeller Foundation, which also brought us our fabulous Chief Resilience Officer. We performed an equity index where we measured different kind of issues of wellness and gave ourselves a score, with 1 being just huge unacceptable rates of disparities between the racial group that is doing the best and the racial group that is doing the worst, and a 100 being perfect equity, you know. And I will tell you that it's about more than 70 indicators. I am pretty sure that my memory serves me that asthma emergency department visits, its racial disparity was a 1. That is the worst possible rate of disparity you can have. It is definitely a bad issue. Our time is up in about 5 minutes. I do want to give each speaker a chance to just give some closing thoughts. You can scroll the questions a little bit more if anyone also wants to respond to any of the final questions that we see that we didn't quite have time to get to. But why don't we start where we started originally with Daniel. Please just give us some ending thoughts.
Thank you, Mayor. So there was lots of great discussion here, and I see one of the questions in there is that we really need to find more ways to lift up the voices of the frontline community members who are truly leading this on the ground in Oakland. And I absolutely agree with that statement. That's the process we used in the Equitable Climate Action Plan, and I hope that's evident that this is a way of lifting up those voices and helping to share those results out with folks. And I think as we conduct these type of forums, both this type of town hall and the mayor's quarterly call with environmental justice groups, we are looking for more ways to allow more or to facilitate more direct involvement with the community members who are leading that. And that's really not just about these forums. This is about all city processes. This is something that the Climate Action Plan, the resilience work, a lot of efforts are trying to move forward in this direction. And any ideas for how we can do that more effectively, please keep them coming. We are listening.
Great, thank you. Alex McBride, our Chief Resilience Officer.
Thanks. And I want to end my comment on one of the questions I received in advance, and I'll quickly read. I've seen how major catastrophes like COVID, earthquakes, floods get people working together for their common good. What can we do to harness this type of energy at times when we are not experiencing catastrophes to motivate people positively? I'm really thankful for that question. And again, as we try to stay hopeful in these times, we are seeing obviously the Oaklanders standing up, and I'm really inspired by seeing the City of Oakland staff really continuing to challenge the way we work and work so nimbly and quickly in this atmosphere, so that we're able to take on new issues and try new things, and again with community voice centered. I personally want to plug. Brazil said September is Creek to Bay Month. It's also National Preparedness Month. And we are also obviously thinking about the most immediate disaster right now, wildfires and the potential PSPS or public safety power shutoffs, and the implications to communities that may lose their power or have bad air quality days. Please continue to coordinate with the emergency services team. Our emergency services manager will be sharing more information in September about how we are standing up our preparedness programming with communities at center. So hopefully you'll be hearing more about that very soon. And we hope to continue, as this person suggests, to harness this energy for good. Thanks. And thanks again for the opportunity to chat today.
Great. That was a beautiful way to end. Brazil, closing thoughts.
I would just like everyone to stay healthy and safe during this unprecedented time. There were stresses before COVID-19, and COVID-19 definitely enhanced those stresses. Working in the environment, I can't help but to say stay grounded, family focused, community focused, and not just lift up the community voice, but circling back to our youth, lift up our youth voice, as they are the future and the gatekeepers of what we will expect our community to be. And so with that said, let's be Oaktown proud.
Leo, please give us your closing thoughts.
I just want to say thank you again to everyone for giving us, me and YP, the chance to be on this town hall and be able to speak in part of the panel discussion. But definitely continue to support our youth, and just everyone be safe, wear a mask, and no matter where you go, even to get gas or to the grocery store, always be safe out there, whatever you do, and to wear gloves as well. But thank you again, and have a nice day, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We will be back on Thursday, August 20th for our next in our town hall series. Thank you so much. Keep your questions, your ideas, your love, your passion for the town coming. Feel free to always contact us at Office of the Mayor at oaklandca.gov. Everyone have a safe, healthy evening and week. We'll see you in